Good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Jay.
Just take one.
Are you Matt?
Yes, I am. Yeah, good to see you.
Sam is gonna introduce you. Jason, where's Jason? I can't always be Colorado. I'm just here. That's amazing. Jason's on the way. Is Abigail up here? Come on up. Come on. Hi, Matt.
Hey, good to see you.
Good
Hello.
to see you. You look great.
Nice party.
Hey. Yeah. We're going to start in a few minutes.
Yeah, this is how we win.
That's right. It's the beginning. To sit here.
They've been here for where are they? Well, you can't see them.
Sam, my hero.
Sam is here. Hi.
So there's been a slight change.
Uh-oh.
This person's not coming, and the person you're introducing, this one's not coming. So Abigail's going to speak, and then I'm going to introduce you, and then you're going to speak and introduce Matt. Matt, this is
I just can you
How are you? Nice to meet you.
away from here?
Hi.
Charlie, Abigail.
Stand up. We don't have
Can you hold on to this?
I know.
We have everybody but Jeff.
Yeah, they're on the way, and I'll keep an eye out for them.
Okay.
The mics are working while it's on.
Can you hold it for me? I don't have a...
Look up to the people in chairs and make sure that they can see. Right. Because they got here super early.
There's a group of elders here who came early and are... There you are.
I was the first one here. She was Colorado.
Thank you for being here. Let's be sure to watch out for the elders.
Yeah, please watch out.
We need their wisdom. Make sure they can see.
We can invite everybody to stand back farther so that they can actually see you.
Okay.
I'm from Colorado. I'm an elder from Colorado. I'm so glad.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here too.
Thank you all for being here to join this Fire Drill Friday. This is an ongoing action to draw attention and a sense of urgency to the climate crisis. This is the last possible moment in history when changing course can mean saving lives and species on an unimaginable scale. But we cannot win this battle by resisting alone. We can't win just by saying no. We need a bold, forward-looking yes. Yes. That addresses the underlying causes of the climate crisis. Make no mistake, change is coming, whether we like it or not. Change is coming by disaster or change is coming by design. The Green New Deal provides the design to bring us all into a sustainable future. This will be a huge, disruptive, super ambitious undertaking, and yes, it's going to cost a whole lot of money. But the cost of inaction is even huger. Over the last 3 years, the total cost of $1 billion weather and climate events exceeded $450 billion. That's the cost of inaction just over the last 3 years. But you know what? This country has been here before. In the 1930s, there was a financial collapse known as the Great Depression. But it was also a time of great social unrest with labor and social protests, even riots about economic insecurity and inequality, demanding the government step in with large-scale programs to help alleviate the hardships. And it was also a time of economic collapse. Farmers had been encouraged to use mechanized plowing in the Great Plains, thus tearing the crucial native grasses from the topsoil. And that led to the Dust Bowl, which forced some 2.5 million people to migrate. My father made a movie called Grapes of Wrath about that crisis. Vast forests all across the Southeast had been cut down, and monocrops of cotton, rice, and tobacco worked by the forced labor of kidnapped Africans had exhausted the soil. In order to lift the country out of deep suffering, President Roosevelt launched the New Deal. In his first 100 days, Roosevelt created government spending programs that put millions of people to work in hundreds of public projects all across the country. The people had said to him, "This is what we need." And you know what he said? "I agree with you. Now go out and make me do it." Let's remember that. No matter who we elect, we're going to have to make them do it. The Civilian Conservation Corps employed 3 million young men to restore the Great Plains. Thousands of farmers could move away from places that could not support them onto more fertile land, into towns and cities, where, with the government's help, they became the American middle class. The Civil Works Administration, the Farm Security Administration, the National Industrial Recovery Act, and Social Security. That all came in the first 100 days of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Everything that we benefit from today came from that. And they provided support for farmers and workers, the millions of unemployed and youth and the elderly. And this is exactly the kind of brave leadership we need to see from our next president. And there are very, very smart policy experts putting together a first 100-day plan for that new president, laying out things that she or he can do through executive order without waiting for Congress. Now, back in the 30s, the rich and powerful hated the New Deal because it set a precedent for the federal government to play a central role in the economic and social affairs of the nation. It was criticized as fascist and socialist. Bankers even tried to overthrow Roosevelt. Big business, big railroads, big banks ranted and raved against it. But there were millions in the streets demanding it, demanding that Roosevelt do even more because it was helping them, and they knew it was helping them. We have to always keep this in our minds. The people in the streets were demanding, and that's why it happened. Even when we had a good person in the White House, we had to demand and demand and demand. Now, the New Deal wasn't perfect. In order to get Southern Democrats to support it, Roosevelt cut African Americans out of the New Deal. Women were largely ignored. But the original New Deal exacerbated inequality rather than addressing it. And the legacy of that is still with us, and we have to learn from those mistakes and go do better going forward. But the New Deal got so much right. The same interests that hated Roosevelt and the New Deal are the ones today telling us that the Green New Deal is bad, that big government is bad, and they've convinced a lot of people of this. The very people who are actually hurt because government is being shrunk and taken over by big business. The fact is, the policies proposed by the Green New Deal are in line with what American people have done before, because there was no choice. And there is no choice now. Scientists tell us the tipping point for catastrophe is only 11 years off. But there is still time if we move quickly and ambitiously to prevent the worst impacts by beginning the transition off fossil fuels to clean, renewable energy now. We cannot continue business as usual. Republicans and some Democrats will say the Green New Deal is ridiculous, utter fantasy, too expensive. But given the emergency, it is those who believe in business as usual and moderation who are truly delusional. The Green New Deal will be difficult, but it's what can save us. And it could instill in this country a much-needed sense of shared higher purpose. So we're going to start off with Abigail Leedy, who is an 18-year-old climate organizer from Philadelphia. Abby was planning to attend college this year. But after learning about the Green New Deal during her senior year of high school, Abby decided school had to wait. She's putting off school to organize full-time with the Sunrise Movement for good jobs and a livable future. Please welcome Abigail Leedy.
Hi, my name is Abby. I'm 18 years old and I'm from Philadelphia. Over a month ago, I was supposed to start college. I did everything right. I found a school that I loved. I could afford it. I got financial aid. I filled out all the forms. I was really nervous about it. I went to a college prep public school and it felt like a really big deal. So I applied early. I remember I found out that I got in December, and I was actually in D.C. I was outside of this action training. We were having the night before sunrise to this big sit-in at Steny Hoyer's office to demand a Green New Deal. And I remember I was so excited, and I was like jumping up and down with my friend for like 1 minute, and then I rushed inside. And I remember I was so happy. But then the next day at the rally, when I tried to speak inside of his office, I started crying. I knew the process of getting into college would be stressful, but once I had been accepted, I thought the whole college thing was going to be really fun. I was supposed to go and grow and meet a million new people and like learn. I was going to learn so much. And I was like getting ready for this new phase of my life, and I'd spent so much time preparing for it, and it was supposed to be so exciting. But the whole time I was applying and like thinking about going and getting in, it was like actually just really confusing because the world was on fire. And I guess that's why I never made it and why I'm here instead. I hear a lot about the hottest month on record. I feel like actually at this point I've lived through most of them. I feel like every time we round the corner to the next month, there are some headlines about all the records we broke. This summer, for example, was the hottest one on record in Philadelphia. In Philly, we get these heat waves, and it's so hot that when you're outside, it feels like you can't breathe. Like if you stand still long enough, something really important might stop working. We get them all the time. We had a really bad one the beginning of my senior year of high school, and none of the public schools in Philly have AC, so we missed 6 days of school because they were worried if they put us all in these brick buildings together, the heat was going to hurt us. In Philly, over 100 people have died in the last 10 years during those heat waves. They send us home from school, but most kids go back to houses without AC in neighborhoods that are like 10 degrees hotter than the suburbs. I read once that this summer was the hottest one in the last 125 years. But when I hear that, all I think is that it's probably the coolest one for the next 125. If 100 people died in the last 10 years before it even really picked up, how many people are going to die in the next 10? Or the 10 after that? How many of my classmates? How many of our family members? In Philly, kids die of asthma attacks caused by their neighborhood fossil fuel projects. In Philly, we let the largest oil refinery on the East Coast live on top of a densely populated residential neighborhood, and we left it there until it blew up one morning this summer. It magically didn't kill anybody, but it released thousands of tons of toxins into the air that people have to breathe every single day. In Philly, we power transit connecting rich white neighborhoods by putting liquefied natural gas plants in poor black neighborhoods that poison the kids living there. In Philly, people die because of fossil fuels, because we don't have nurses in public schools, because they're poor. Young people are born poor, stay poor, and maybe die later in a heat wave or a fossil fuel explosion that they had no role in creating. All around the country, people like me, young people, are growing up to die in fossil fuel and climate fuel disasters that they had no part in making. My friends have we have a running joke, under the Green New Deal. Every time we think of something so good it feels impossible, we just throw it in that. Under a Green New Deal. Under a Green New Deal, all corporate bookstores are public libraries. Under a Green New Deal, we're going to turn all of these gas stations into parks. Under a Green New Deal, all of the public schools have AC. It's mostly a joke, but it's also not. I never made it to college because the world's on fire, yeah? But also because I couldn't stop thinking about what it would be like to keep growing up and growing old under a Green New Deal. Under a Green New Deal, there would be no oil refineries in Southwest Philly. Under a Green New Deal, there would be no more people burning alive in forest fires in California. Under a Green New Deal, I'll never have to worry that my job is killing the planet. Maybe under a Green New Deal, I install solar panels. Maybe under a Green New Deal, all the public schools have nurses. Under a Green New Deal, we care about good carbon neutral work like nursing. Under a Green New Deal, I go to college. Under the Green New Deal, the city and the suburbs get the same heat waves, but it doesn't matter because we don't have heat waves anymore. Under a Green New Deal, young people don't grow up to die in climate disasters that they didn't create. Under a Green New Deal, young people don't grow up to die because they're poor. Under a Green New Deal, no one dies because they're poor.
Yes!
I'm here right now, and I might not go back to school next year or the year after because I'm terrified of what happens without a Green New Deal, because I stay up at night thinking about the next heat wave or the next fossil fuel explosion. But more than that, I'm not going back to school because I so desperately want to see the lives that my generation will live under a Green New Deal. Because under a Green New Deal, we don't just get a livable future. We don't just get to survive. Under a Green New Deal, all young people get to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. I just want to add that under a Green New Deal, former fossil fuel workers who are now working in a sustainable energy area will earn union jobs that can support a family and afford to send their children to school and buy a home. We cannot leave fossil fuel workers behind, and we will not. And now I want to introduce somebody that I love so much. His name is Sam Waterston. He is, of course, my Frankie's ex-husband in Grace and Frankie, Saul Bergstein. But I also worked with him in a remarkable series called The Newsroom, where I was his boss. You may know him from Law and Order, which he was in for many, many years. He's had a 50-year career and has won so many awards, Emmys and Golden Globes and Screen Actors Guild. And he was nominated for an Oscar for his remarkable role in The Killing Fields. Please join me in welcoming Sam Waterston.
So, if I don't shout as well as those two, can you still hear me? Because I want to say that I'm here, as I suspect a lot of you are, because we don't want to be looking into the eyes of our children and our grandchildren and into the people of the next generation and say, I was worried. I really was very, very worried, but I was so busy. So the first thing I want to do is to thank the organizers of this wonderful Fire Drill Friday. And I want to thank Jane Fonda for getting me up on my feet, for getting me up from staring in horror at the TV. We can do something about this. It will matter. People with power and influence have done what is good and sensible before. They will do it again, but in our country and under our system of government, they need to be pushed. As Jane was just saying, that's our job. Anyone who imagines they can take on climate disruption all by themselves is crazy, out of their minds. We have to join together. We need something to push for that's as big as the problem. People say the Green New Deal is radical. What is radical is climate disruption. We will only beat it if we think and act in new ways. We can do it. We've done it before. The New Deal did it. It took gigantic social, economic, and environmental catastrophe, the Dust Bowl, the Great Depression, the stock market crash, and made a new and better United States. Government didn't do this. We made government do it. Climate is a man-made crisis. We can beat it. We just can't be afraid to look the problem in the eye. We can't be afraid to think big, and we have to act in lots of different ways because there are a lot of different angles to this, and we have to act together. That's the message of the Green New Deal as I understand it in a nutshell. I think I'm a moderate person. I think I'm a reasonable person. What we're doing today, to me, isn't radical. To me, it's a moderate response to a sensible and good response to a radical situation. Maybe the most radical situation the world has ever seen. Nobody knows how it will all turn out, but who wants to take it lying down? So, thank you. So now, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Matt Nelson. Matt Nelson is the Colombian-born, Midwestern-raised executive director of Presente.org, the nation's largest online Latinx organizing group, advancing social justice with technology, media, and culture. Before his work at Presente.org, Matt was the organizing director at colorofchange.org and co-founded several worker-owned cooperatives in multiple Midwestern cities. He is a seasoned campaign strategist, who has won dozens of local and national campaigns, and he's a skilled community organizer who has trained thousands of activists, and it'll be really interesting to hear what he has to say.
Sam, yes. Oh, wow. Sam's quite a bit taller than I am. So let me, and I guess you don't realize it until you see the height of the microphone. No, I got it. So, hi everyone. How's it going? How are you doing? This is amazing. You're amazing. Thank you for being here. It was famed labor and civil rights leader Eugene Debs that said, "The earth is for all of the people. That is the demand." And so today, as we invite and welcome social movements, I want to recognize the teachers who are on strike in Chicago. Thousands of teachers on strike who are demanding better working conditions, better living conditions for them and the children they serve every day. And as many of you know, these strikes follow the climate strikes, where young people led a incredible global-wide effort to get out into the streets and to make this issue known. And it is going to be young people and teachers together that can bring these victories home forward with us. So I want to say thank you about that, because what we need here is true leadership and courage. And the labor movement, not many people recognize this as much as they should, has always been part of the environmental movement. When I think of the labor movement, I think of the United Farm Workers. I think of the people who were living the grapes of wrath. The people who said that part of our work has to be protecting the working conditions and protecting labor. So there's always been leadership in labor in the environmental movement. And we have to recognize that leadership and that courage. Because as we stand right here, in contrast, there's corruption and cowardice. And so let's replace the corruption and cowardice of our elected leaders with courage. The other part of this Green New Deal is got to be global solidarity. We actually can't address the climate crisis in the United States without understanding why people in South America are rising up against neoliberalism, about why people around the world are addressing the devastation caused by corporate power. And it has to be intersectional. You know, it's communities of color, it's Native people, it's women, from Presente's perspective, it's Latinx people who understand that we endure twin crises, not just the existential threats created by the climate crisis, but the crises of racism and xenophobia and misogyny and gender violence that plague us all. So we have to have an intersectional movement that truly addresses the scale of the problem, and that can be in a Green New Deal. Yeah. And it's the people who endure multiple crises at a time are in the best place to lead. The natural leaders of this movement are those who understand. I want to say a quick thing. We heard a few things about, climate crisis is a man-made crisis. But it's actually a person-made crisis. And the persons I'm talking about are corporations who have the constitutional right of people, but none of the responsibilities. It is raw, brutal corporate power. So think about raw, brutal corporate power for a second. And we're gonna talk about some of these corporations, like the Exxons of the world, and we have to say to them, corporate scum, here we come. Yeah! Can y'all say that? Corporate scum, here we come. Just speak into it. Hello, hello. Scum, here we come. And corporations shouldn't have constitutional rights. There shouldn't be corporate personhood. And as a little homework, corporate personhood happened right after as a replacement to slavery. So corporate power in the United States has always been the intersection of white supremacy and corporate domination that is really on the front lines of destroying the climate for all of us. So we got to talk about corporate power as the solutions. And the Green New Deal is an invitation to do that, just like it's a rescue plan for our communities.
This one's stronger.
Should I do both?
Yeah. Turn the volume all the way up.
They turn you off, we turn you up.
I know.
Corporate scum, here we come.
Yes. And so, check. All right. We're doing it. See, innovation, adaptation, this is how we make it work. And this is how social movements are going to work with this type of solidarity. All right. Because we need each other. And the other challenge here with the Green New Deal is, and what happened with the New Deals before, is that, yes, they happened because we demanded it, but the we is social movements that are strong enough, that are intersectional enough, that are daily enough to actually build the power in our communities for transformative change. We don't want transactional change. We want transformative change. And that happens through organizing. That happens through the social movements that will remake our democracy. It is the earth for all of the people. That is the demand. So in closing, I want to thank those who have shown the courage to convene here today, the courage to get out of our comfort zones, the courage to show love for young people and frontline leaders of this new social movement, and the courage to come together and bring our best selves in the organizing and remaking the country and the world that we all need and deserve. So much love and respect. Y'all are amazing. Now let's get free, and let's do what we need to do to get free. And corporate scum, here we come. Here we come. Corporate scum, here we come. Corporate scum, here we come. Corporate scum, here we come. Corporate scum.
Okay, talk about. I get to introduce a friend who is the quintessential person from a frontline community. Her name is Jacelyn Charger. And she is an indigenous environmental protector and activist from the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. She was one of the first people to set up camp at the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation to oppose the Dakota Access Pipeline. In 2016, seeing that young people were not being listened to, Jacelyn and other indigenous youth decided to put their bodies on the line. They ran 2,000 miles from Standing Rock to Washington, D.C. to deliver a petition to the Army Corps of Engineers with more than 140,000 signatures to stop the pipeline. I'm telling you, when I read about those young people, it totally inspired me and got me out of the depression when you know who got elected.
Hell yeah.
Please join me in welcoming a true frontline warrior, Jacelyn Charger.
I greet you in my native tongue, which is a sign of great respect for my people. And I respect all of you for coming out here today and standing in solidarity. All of you are warriors to me, because to be able to come out here in civil disobedience, having the freedom to do so, having the freedom to stand up here and speak without judgment or persecution, that's the greatest freedom that we have ever fought for.
Yeah.
I stand here before you, a Lakota woman, of my people. I'm sorry, I'm a bit emotional. Because every time I'm up here, I cry. Because I think about how many women, how many men, how many children have fought for this freedom to get up here and speak their piece, to get up here and speak on behalf of thousands of people who don't have that right across this world. To be up here to speak for young women, young men in this world who suffer because climate change, and they have no part of it. They have no say in what happens to them or their families. And I stand up here with great respect for the freedom that I have, but also for the freedom that has been taken away from me and my people. I give acknowledgement to the Piscataway people, the land that we are standing on today. I'd give out to my brother Sevi. He brought me out here today. Every time I come to D.C., it's always a trigger for me. Because every time I walk through these halls, every time I go into that Capitol building, every time I sit down in a meeting, I just feel the spirits of my people. I feel the spirits of the young people across this world suffering. And I get so emotional. Because I have the power, I have the voice to tell their story. And it's a powerful one. It's the story of young people. It's the story of a child. It's the story of a young pregnant woman. It's the story of our lives. The lives that we have to live through today through climate change. When I was 17 years old, I came out here for my very first time. Like my young sister standing right here, I was supposed to go to college. Full ride. But once a pipeline came to my community called the KXL pipeline, built by the same people that built Dakota Access, TransCanada. They threatened my people. They threatened my way of life. So I, having the warrior spirit in me of my people that came before me, and for the women that came before that, who fought for our freedoms, who fought for me so I can be here today, I stood up. I felt that my warrior spirit calling, because this isn't right. Children not having clean water is not right. I want to quote one of amazing women that I still look up to, Winona Duke. Me wanting clean water, that makes me a terrorist. But a corporation poisoning our water makes it money off of my people, off the suffering of my people. And I stand up here today as a humble woman. Yes, I've been on the front lines. Yes, I started Standing Rock. But I had no choice. These governments gave me no choice. No choice but to stand up. And like my friend, we are not taking this line down. We are going to stand up. We're going to rise. And we're going to fight. It is the young people that I see in these streets day after day. But now my heart feels so happy that it's not just young people anymore. Yes, I appreciate it. Because it's the leaders, it's people like you who came before us, who laid down the stones, the pavements, to make the way for us to rise, for us young people. You guys made the way. And I see you guys out here, and I know you guys been out here when you were younger. I know you can't lie. I know you were out here. So just to see that we're supported by the young and the old, by the rich and the poor, represented, standing, united as one, on one field, in front of this Capitol building, that brings so much strength to my heart, because this is what they don't want.
Yeah!
This united. This is what they're afraid of, and they should be. With the Green New Deal, let's talk about that for a minute. The Green New Deal will offer jobs to people who have none. And for me, that's a good thing. What I can't understand is these corporations not taking care of their workers. The people in the uranium mines, the coal mines, they're all dying of cancer. They do not care about the people that they give jobs to. All they care is about putting money in your pocket. But where does that money go? Where is it going to go if you have cancer? They make money off of you. They use you. And by God, right now I say no more. I say justice for people who have to live in those environments. I come from the Black Hills. If you guys know the history about that, they've been drilling gold in our hills for generations, raping our mother, raping our hills. And when I go home, I'm going home to a uranium fight because they're dumping old uranium toxic chemicals into my Black Hills. And when I go home, the KXL is back again, that black snake. Speaking here is such a different environment on the res. It's such a different environment on the front lines. Because people like me, young women, young men who stand and fight for our freedoms and for our right to clean water and a good life, I don't see how that's fair. Generations, people have enjoyed this world, enjoyed clean water, a good way of living for generations, and my generation has to fight for that. We're the ones that we're going to fix this, that we're going to be the leaders, that we're going to be the next politicians to fix this. Why is that our problem? Why do young people have to not go to school? Why do we have to be on the front lines? Why do we have to be on the streets instead of getting an education, living our own lives, being young people? It's because we feel the fear in our hearts that our future is unknown. We feel the fear in our souls that our future is in danger. Because the souls of our unborn children are screaming at us, telling us that they're going to suffer. And for me, as a woman, as a giver of life, as a holder of water, a sacred being, I feel the screams of my mother. I feel the screams of the earth. And I say no more. I'm going to protect my mother. No more. 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 We're warriors. Yes. Yes.
And now I want to introduce Charlie Jang. Charlie is a climate campaigner at Greenpeace, USA, where he leads campaigns to ensure the next U.S. president and Congress will pass a Green New Deal and end our dependency on fossil fuel. Charlie comes to Greenpeace with a background in climate and environmental justice policy and grassroots organizing. He organizes for justice here in Washington and volunteers with youth-led movements including Sustain Us and Power Shift Network. Please join me in welcoming Charlie Jiang.
Hello everyone. I'm going to kick us off with a little chant. When I say, what do we want? You say climate justice. When I say, when do we want it? You say, now. What do we want?
Climate justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Climate justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Climate justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
Cool, cool. Hey everyone. My name is Charlie Jiang. I'm 24 years old. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a climate campaigner with Greenpeace. I live here these days in Washington, D.C. on traditional Piscataway lands. But I was born and raised in Chicago on the traditional lands of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples. And my city is a Union City, as Matt said before. That's where my parents immigrated when they moved from the from China to the U.S. They believed in the American dream, and they worked hard to raise my little brother and I to fulfill that dream. It's a classic story that so many of us, kids of immigrants like myself, are told about this country. But that dream has been inaccessible always for too many, and today it's out of reach for too many more. This is a country of dreamers, but it's also one of slavery and of Jim Crow, of indigenous genocide, of concentration camps, and of endless wars. Today it's a country in climate crisis that's fueled by fossil fuel executives who put their own profits over people's lives, where stronger hurricanes and fires and floods harm black, brown, low-income, indigenous franchised communities, the most in the U.S. and around the world. It's a country with a broken healthcare system, with gun violence and police brutality, and with lead-laced drinking water in too many cities, including right here in D.C. And where children are still in cages at the U.S.-Mexico border. I was studying to be a physicist, to uncover the mysteries of the universe, to have a family and to live what I hope would be a comfortable life. But in the face of crisis where so many of my friends and family are suffering from pollution and fires and exploitation, comfort is no longer an option for people like me. Because first and foremost, we are global citizens. We have a duty to each other. And I asked myself, how could I look to the stars when so many people are suffering on this planet that we have right now? So I'm here because I believe that we deserve something better. That if we come together to organize, to strike, to vote, to hold our politicians accountable, we can do something to make that future happen. For the last 50 years, our politics have been defined by a new kind of Gilded Age, where a handful of wealthy families are making billions of dollars while injustice, inequality, and climate crisis grows. But I believe that we are on the cusp of ending that age and raising the curtain on the next 50 years, on the era of the Green New Deal. Imagine a world beyond fossil fuels. A world powered by 100% renewable energy that's owned by communities, not for-profit utilities. Where instead of coal mines and oil refineries and pipelines through indigenous lands, there are public parks and schools and community resilience centers. Where the air is clean and the water is safe to drink. Where we put millions of people to work, retrofitting homes, manufacturing electric buses, growing sustainable farms and community gardens. Where jobs under the Green New Deal are union jobs. Whether you're in a wind turbine factory or in a progressive nonprofit organizing to pass the next piece of Green New Deal legislation. Where everyone has good healthcare, education, housing, healthy food, and the social and physical networks to be resilient in the face of this changing climate. This is the vision that I have of the Green New Deal, and I know it's one that so many of us share. But already the fossil fuel industry is fighting back. They're spending millions of dollars lobbying politicians, creating new front groups, and running attack ads against the Green New Deal. All while they continue to invest millions of dollars in new oil and gas projects that are driving us towards climate disaster. What they don't want you to know is that they are scared of our power. Because history tells us that when millions of people come together, by taking to the streets, by going to the ballot box, by sitting in at lunch counters or senators' offices, we can win the transformative change we need and move closer to a just world. So the next decade is going to be crucial, and the next year will be crucial. We're going to need all hands on deck in 2020 to take bold action so that we can elect leaders who will be champions for Green New Deal and pass policies to end the era of fossil fuels. At Greenpeace, we are gearing up for a big campaign in 2020 with our partners to put pressure on candidates so they make ending the era of fossil fuels their top priority in the next administration. We are going to expose big oil's corruption and greenwashing tactics and erode the influence they've held over our politics for far too long. And we're going to fight alongside our allies to ensure that the Green New Deal is developed by and for communities at the front lines of the climate emergency we face, not by the same executives and lobbies who created the crisis in the first place. So shameless plug time. You can join Greenpeace by texting climate to 877-877. And you can join our partners at sunrisemovement.org and presente.org. Sorry. And right after this, if you're not risking arrest today, you can join me in heading to the park in front of the World Bank building over in Farragut North for a rally at noon with indigenous leaders, youth, and global justice allies to demand the World Bank stop financing new fossil fuel development. I am so grateful to see so many faces here today, young and old, because we cannot wait for a Green New Deal. We have to come together and demand it. Thank you.
I want to end by quoting Naomi Klein, who has said, "Let us remember that there are tens of thousands of people, huge numbers of organizations who have been preparing for a Green New Deal style breakthrough for decades. Centuries in the case of indigenous people. These forces have been quietly building local models and road testing policies for how to put justice at the center of our climate response and how we can protect forests, generate renewable energy, design public transit, and much more. And as surely as the glaciers are melting and the ice sheets are breaking apart, the free market ideology is dissolving too. In its place, a new vision of what humanity can be is emerging. It's coming from the streets, from the schools, from workplaces, and even from inside houses of government. It is a vision that says that when the future of life is at stake, there is nothing we cannot achieve. We are not doomed unless we choose to be. So thank you for being here. Join us every Friday and tune in to our Thursday teach-in at 7 p.m. Eastern Time by going to Fire Drill Friday. And now we're going to get arrested. Thank
Abby, there you are.
We know something. Nice to meet you.
Pretty nice people.
Let me get that picture.
Are you going back to
All right. I see Jay. Okay, hi Jay. I'm Sue.
We love you. By the time I was in my
To start all over again is just so discouraging. But to see the youth up there, I think it's terrific.
Well, I have a friend who's a professional.
Oh my God. That's like a lobbyist only in the other end of it.
Yeah, right. I guess she doesn't have anything better to do. I don't know. No, but she's good. She's got a good heart. So she just wants to see nice things happen.
Most of them do.
Yeah.
We'll have a good time. All that is necessary for evil to triumph is that good men and women do nothing. So if you want evil to triumph, do nothing. You know, I've lived with that motto since I was a young teen.
I don't know if it was today or yesterday. Well, what's today? Friday. No, I think it was today. A friend of mine said she saw it.
This is one of those conundrums. It's you guys. It's you. Wasn't that a pretty love? Yeah, it's not a pretty so long. Talkiest talkie ever made. It's so timely, right? Oh yeah.
Are we going? Let's go.
Yep.
We need Jay.
Gonna get arrested?
It's liberating.
Guys, we gotta move. All right, ready?
Fine with me.
North on my back. You'll be there when we get out, right?
I don't say I'm way up on their list.
All right, let's go.
I can.
Good job.
Thanks.
Make sure you hand your phone up to someone.
Oh yeah, who do I give it to?
An agent, maybe, or manager?
Thank you.
Are you got my phone?
Strongest candidate.
Oh yes. As soon as you release the council.
Activist. What did you learn from that compared to this?
I'll try and do that. I'm trying my best.
Excuse me.
What are the signs? It says no more business as usual. I can't see it down. Thank you.
James, series coming to Washington next week. You think Nancy Pelosi should throw the first pitch? How about you? You spend a lot of time here.
Somebody may be gaining on
Jane, we're working on creating carbon sequestration ambassadors in New York City from our elementary schools. Thank you.
Gabby, come sit
Yeah, okay.
Climate justice! Climate justice!
How is getting arrested today?
Climate justice!
Are you going to say
Now! Climate justice! Climate justice! Now! Now! What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now! If we don't get it! Shut it down! If we don't get it! Shut it down! If we don't get it! Shut it down! What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now! If we don't get it! Shut it down! If we don't get it! Shut it down! If we don't get it! Shut it down!
We're gonna rise up till it's won. We're gonna rise up till it's won. When the people rise up, the powers come down. When the people rise up, the powers come down. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. We're gonna rise up till it's won. We're gonna rise up till it's won. When the people rise up. Excuse me, we're trying to get horizontal.
Thank you.
When the people rise up, the powers come down.
And we're going to move slowly.
They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back.
Amelia, we have to ask you to keep moving so we can keep moving. Please keep moving.
What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate justice. When do we
You're in public space. You can't control the press out here. This couldn't be a more public place.
Yes, but we need to be able to move if you want to get these shots. So it's in all of our best interest if you're on the other side of the banner so that we can actually move. We're trying to help everybody here. Ain't no power like the power. Yeah, she's the best.
Say what? This guy right here. Power of the people, the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, the power of the people don't stop. Say what?
I'm doing my job, and so we're going this way. All right, everybody got a job to do, and let me do mine, because I'm not stopping you from doing yours.
Power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. One more time. Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. Justice. When do we want it? Now. When do we want climate justice? When do we want it? Now. If we don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down.
Keep moving.
Please keep moving.
Shut it down. What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. If we don't get it,
shut it down.
If we don't get it,
shut it down.
If we don't get it,
Shut
it
down.
down.
We're trying to go forward. You know we're going forward. Come on, sir. Just be cooperative. Peaceful. This is peaceful. This is peaceful.
Dude, you can't get a picture of the fucking banner if you're not.
Climate justice.
Sorry. You're okay.
All right, this is peaceful, man. This is peaceful.
These
This
two
is
are the
peaceful,
only ones
guys.
that
This
are-
is peaceful.
Watch out right here, guys.
Watch
the killers. Killers.
Hey! Ho, ho! Shoot, shoot! Get up, get up, get up!
Line,
Step,
please.
step,
Line.
step.
Pause.
Hey,
Line.
we're shifting up. We're shifting up.
All right, we're going this way. Pause there.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
Got it? All right.
Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey!
Ho ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey hey! Ho ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey hey! Ho ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey hey! Ho ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey hey! Ho ho!
It's a curb, yeah. It's a curb. Be careful. It's a curb behind you. It's a curb behind you. Be careful.
Watch the curb! Watch the curb! Take the street! Step, step, step! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
Yeah, say that way. Say it.
All right. All right, forward. Forward, banner. Forward. Forward, banner. Thank you.
Hold tight.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
Forward, banner.
Fossil fuels have got to
Forward.
go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey!
Move back a little.
Ho, ho!
Move back.
Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! We're gonna rise up till it's won.
We're gonna rise up till it's won. When the people rise up, the powers come down. When the people rise up, the powers come down. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. We're gonna rise up till it's won. We're gonna rise up till it's won. When the people rise up, the powers come down. When the people rise up, the powers come down. Stop
coming back. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. All right, hey, non-arrestables, take that side, yeah?
Side, field. If there's a few, Warren, Buttigieg, no? So what do you want to see, though, from them in the next debate on this issue? Talk about ending fossil fuels completely?
I think the thing that we're doing here is we're trying to say
an area without a permit. If you do not cease, you are subject to arrest. This is your first warning.
That's why we're here.
Thank you.
Would you consider that you're wrong on the science? I have a book here, The Politically Incorrect Guide to Climate. Would you read it? You read Naomi Klein's book. Would you read another book with an alternative view? Would you consider reading the book?
Jay, what did you mean by
it tells you about the United Nations, the science, and how the Green New Deal, even if you believed it, would have no impact on the science. Sir, would you read it? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are demonstrating in an area without a permit. If you do not move, you'll be subject to arrest. This is your second warning.
Giddy? Raise the sense of urgency around climate change. You seem serious.
We're excited to bring San Marino to make it
We'll see.
Oh, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are demonstrating in an area without a permit. If you do not move, you'll be subject to arrest. This is your third and final warning.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? Which side are you on now? Which side are you on?
Send a perimeter up to the street.
Yeah, I know.
Up on the sidewalk, ma'am, up on the sidewalk. On the sidewalk. Let me get back in there. Help folks back in there. Thank you.
Nope. We're trying. Nope, nope, nope. Nope. You can't do that. Dude, I'm trying to get back there. So don't get... I'm going to go to the other side.
Put his lens right on my head. As you can tell, I yelled back. Photographers are the worst.
You can keep your sign up.
Yeah, thanks.
This is a protest. Media can move around you.
that bench in like 5 minutes.
Oh, I found it.
I mean, for somebody getting arrested, everybody's in a good mood.
Yeah. I have the same.
First arrest. Yeah, there's our paddy wagons over there.
And, you know, I don't know you, but you do know a whole lot about me. Even though I'm saying something else.
It's hard to hear him from so far, but he's talking to cops.
Our street! Shut it down! Our street! We don't get it! Shut it down! Our street! If we don't get it, shut it down! Our street! If we don't get it, shut it down! Our street! If we don't get it, shut it down! You can take Sam's glasses, but he can still see the truth.
You and McClure are going to handle the street here.
Thank you, Sam.
Open up the side of the door. Wait, I think this log for us. So you and McClure have this whole story for you. All right?
Grace and Frankie episode. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
to